So it's been okay, cool. So we'll start off with logical operations. Before we get into this, as you can see, the first four commands there, CMP, CMN, TST, and TEQ, they perform operations which are like CMP performs subtraction, CMN is analogous to addition, TST to and TEQ to EOR. But the only thing is, it does not write the result to a register. It just updates the flags. And I'll get to a bit why would we use them if we cannot write out the result and just update the flag. And then we'll also deal with LSL, LSR, ASR, and ROR. And then I'll show you guys two codes and give you leave you guys with assignments that you'll have to submit the next week. So I wanted to make one thing clear. Do all of you know how flags work? Because especially with logical bitwise operations, it's extremely important that you know how these XPSR flags work.
Yeah, could you just explain the carry flag once?
Yeah. So one second. So you can see your flags down here. I hope my cursor is clear. Like you can see
Yeah,
where
we
I'm.
can see
Yeah,
that.
it's clear.
We can see that.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's fine.
So can one of you all, instead of it being me narrating or something, can one of you all who thinks they have clarity, tell me what N, Z, C, and V flags are?
N is negative flag and Z is zero flag. C is carry flag.
Carry flag.
V is overflow.
Okay. And when does the negative flag when is it flagged? So
When your MSB is 1.
when your
MSB is 1. Like it is negative number.
okay, but to elaborate on it, it'll happen when you add two negative numbers because that is exactly when you have a oh, I'm so sorry. That is negative overflow. So negative overflow happens, like I told, when you add two negative numbers. And the positive overflow happens when you add two positive numbers, which exceed 32-bit limit. And one of you all asked about the carry flag, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Ma'am actually gave an example where you could add two positive numbers and you end up getting a negative number. I think that's 8 followed by 7 zeros you get at the end. Hexa in hexa.
Okay, so you add two positive numbers and
You can still get a negative number and then the end flag is set 1.
okay. So the thing with these the flags is sometimes they have specific rules. Like today, I was checking out the carry flag and I realized when you use the TST operation, right, the order of the operands also makes a difference. And sometimes when your operand 1 is greater than the operand 2, you get a carry flag. Like uh, I'd I'd like you guys to read upon the ARM documentation to understand how, because there are different rules about how each one functions. In general, n is negative, z is 0, but there are specific rules that help you code much better. So I'd want you guys to refer to the documentation once after this class. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So elaborating on why do we use these flags, first of all, being able to set flags is pointless if you can't react to them, right? Like you're obviously setting them to use or take the output and do another action. Do I make sense? Like you do not set them just to see if it's a carry out or if it's equal. You see to very smoothly map out the if else construct in C. You can do that in assembly coding as well. So when you are building out loops, the flags play a major role. You refer to the flags almost always to build the loops. So firstly, one second. So these are the conditional commands that you use to check the flags. has this been shown in the MBST class? Can someone tell me?
They did show it, but then they never really taught anything. Like they didn't include this in our code or anything.
Okay, fine. I'll show you guys a code which includes all of this, some of it at least. So EQ, I think I pushed one code. Uh, so the BNE loop that you see here, that NE is basically the NE here, which it basically says that when my Z flag is not equal, like the two operands that I give here, for example, compare R0 and R1, if they're not equal, then I want this loop to run. So it's almost like saying if X is not equal to Y, then run this loop. Yeah, so that's that. And I think this will be, sorry.
Wait, it
What
says
is the
Z
key stand
clear,
for?
right?
Yeah, Z clear. So when it's not equal, the loop runs.
Okay, fine.
Like compare compares two operands, right? And when both of them are not equal, you want a loop to run under that condition, you use the NE. If you want
Basically,
to
when Z is equal to 0,
not,
the loop
yeah,
runs.
yeah,
It
yeah,
checks if Z
exactly.
is 0.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yes,
What is the
exactly.
B for though? You have like B and
Acha. So the B doesn't specify anything. I can as well put it as XNE. It's uh, it's just to run the command. Like it doesn't signify anything. It doesn't have significance as such. It's just to create loops. And I think especially the overflow flag and carry along with the zero flag and all, you all will be using much later. So I'll not be touching upon that right now. Whereas the carry and the zero flags, you'll need to understand how they work. And okay, 1 second. So compare and CMN are analogous to subtraction and addition, except your result is not written in the registers. And TST and TQ are analogous to and EOR. Whereas ORR is basically OR and BIC is bit clear. So all of these logical bitwise operations are used in application-based encryption, data compression, masking the bits. I'm sure you're doing DST right now, right? So you'll be understanding what I mean by masking bits, ANDing them, and so all of this comes under, like, all of this is used majorly for encryption, and also uh, like all of these things, the bitwise operations are extremely useful because they're very fast. And to give you guys a rough example, can you tell me the logic of in C, or like just the algorithm, in fact, tell me how will you find out if a number is a power of 2? Like, let's say I give you a number 4. How do you know, like, how do you write a code to know that it is a power of 2?
That number percent 2 will give you 0.
Yeah, so you keep on iterating it, right? By when you're dividing it by 2 until you reach 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
you keep right
So
shifting the number until you see 1. Make sure all the right shifts are 0 and then you see 1. And then after that it should be all 0 again.
yeah, that that will work too, but there's a much simpler one. Something you'll find out when you just look at the bits, just observe the bits. So the division and the shifting, both of them work. But the issue with shifting, I mean, with division is when you basically have to divide it by 2 until it reaches 0, right? So this is basically an extremely complex process, right? Like you will have to run it. I mean, the order is going to be log to the log n, right? Log n to the base 2. So that's extremely tedious for your computer to run when you just want to know if a number is a power of 2, right? Now I will tell you a much simpler. I'm trying to access the whiteboard. Um, yeah, anyway. So, can you all tell me the binary for number 3?
1 1.
Okay. And for number 4, it is 1 0 0, right? So, when you AND the both of them, you get 0,
0.
right? So, when you AND two numbers and you get 0, it is odd. Like you could actually apply this to any numbers, and you'll observe that when you're ANDing x with x minus 1 and it's 0, it's an odd number. So I mean, can you compare how easier it is when you apply it on a bit level than to keep dividing it on a loop? Like, am I making the point clear? Like about
Wait, I
the
don't
main.
understand the odd part. Like, which number are you getting that's odd?
Okay, so you take the binary of 3 and 4 and you AND it, and the result is going to be 0.
Okay.
So
Right,
like,
so
yeah,
the n and n minus 1 will give you
yes,
0 if n is a
odd.
power of 2.
N is a power of,
Or,
yes.
yeah, okay.
So like, and actually like I've tried to look upon operations which are much easier when you apply bitwise. And there are actually a lot of them that you can see, and the time complexity as well is very less. So especially assembly and microcontrollers, it is from the very basic level, right? And it is much faster when you do it bitwise. That is where these logical operations will come in handy. So that is why bitwise operation. And LSR, ASR, and ROR, do you guys know how it works? Because like
Yeah.
Yes.
the only reason I'm asking this because I'm a little conflicted about. I know your MBST class is going much faster. I know you guys have covered a lot, but I actually want to make sure all of you know what these concepts are.
It would be really nice if you could repeat them.
Yeah,
I'm not
could you
very
please
sure.
repeat them once?
Yeah. So LSL or LSR is logical shift right. So I've actually feel like a boomer, but like I can't access the whiteboard. It'd be really nice if I could just draw it out and show. Uh,
I think it's an option under screen sharing, not sure though.
yeah, 1 second, I'll check.
I think you'll have to stop screen sharing and then start your
Yeah,
whiteboard.
it's in the screen sharing option.
Okay, cool. So I just stopped it for a while. Yeah, cool, got it. So in every register, you have 32 bits, right? So this is my B31. And this is my B0. So when I do logical shift right, or okay, I'll tell logical shift. When I do logical shift left, this is the syntax. It's LSL and the register you want to store the shifted value to, the register whose value you want to shift. So if this value is R1's value, and you do so this number you mention is the number of times you want this command to shift your bits. So let's say I put 2. Now the same thing will shift into, this will be B30. The bit from here. And this will be B29. And in the 2 positions from here, right, I'll just add a 0 here. So what happens essentially is the bits shift to the left, but your last bits are lost. So your
Wait, won't it
B31.
be bit 20? Won't it start from bit 29 if you're shifting it twice?
No. So I shifted twice, but initially my carry flag has nothing, right? My carry, the carrying element is empty. So first my B31 will shift here, then B31 will be lost, the value of it. So similarly with LSR, it's to the right. And with ASR basically you'll have the carry bit to your right. Okay, I see your message.
I mean, because the way they taught us, it was like if they shift it once, they lose the 31st bit and they start from the 30th bit.
Yeah,
That
but
was
your
how
31st bit will be stored in the carry flag.
Okay, so I mean, in the final value, you'll have, I mean, the MSB will be the 29th bit itself, right? From the original.
Yeah. It'll be the 29th bit.
Okay.
And with ASR, it's towards the right, except my B1 and B2 will keep shifting, and my MSB will duplicate itself to the rightmost part. So let's say I apply the same thing here, but in ASR. What will essentially happen is this will be my B1, my B0 will be lost, and I'll have the other bits here with B31 thrice because it duplicated itself twice. And it'll be a 31 again here.
Wait, why did it duplicate? I'm sorry.
An easy way to understand this is that the MSB replicates itself.
Yeah.
So if the MSB is 1, right? So that means like if the MSB is 1 and it'll keep duplicating itself. As in, if you're right shifting, if you're arithmetic right shifting 0x1000, it'll become 1800 in hex, if that makes sense. Chitra, why don't you just show them in terms of bits? Like,
Yeah.
just show
I'll
them
do
in
that.
terms of like 5 bits or something.
Yeah, 1 second. I'll just write a code to. Give me a minute, guys.
It's basically like if you have 32 bits in the start and you're shifting to the right by 1 bit. So all the bits get shifted to the right, and the newest bit that you have to insert over there, like in the place of the MSB, it is the same as the old MSB, right? Like, so if it was 1 before, you just repeat
Exactly.
the MSB so that the sign is extended.
Yeah, you're right.
And the bit that comes out becomes the carry.
Yeah. So do you guys still want me to? I'm just simulating it 1 second. Okay, to share again, I'll lose the whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm basically moving a random value into R2 and I'm doing a ASR R0, R2 and I'm shifting it twice, that #2. So when I run this, you can see that R2 takes the value of the hex value 10 and the bitwise shift happens and you can see R0 is 4 there. So basically here your MSB is 0, right? I'm sorry, not 0. But after the bitwise shift happens and you convert it to hex, you will essentially get the value 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is how ASR works. And ROR is basically it rotates, like your LSB becomes your MSB when you shift it once.
Could you repeat that?
In ROR basically your your LSB shifts to the rightmost position. So your LSB is now your MSB. I think I'll
Okay, so basically there's no insertion of new bits, right? You just
yeah,
keep
yeah.
rotating the bits with the same value.
Yeah, they just keep rotating.
Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, and one more topic we'd be touching upon, the last one, is pre and post indexing. It's basically memory access commands, and don't worry too much about it. I'll show a code in which you're accessing the memory points, like right after this, so then it'll be clear. And after the code, I'll get back to this slide again and tell it clearly if possible. Yeah, so oh, by the way, I've also put up assignments. So that again, it's the same process. You'll have to submit it before your next class. So this is basically to find out if the given number is odd or even. So the logic that I've used here is, so if it's a even bit, by default your LSB is going to be 0.
Chitra, 1 minute. You'll have to replace the TST R1, 0 with 1. Just replace it with #1. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for that error. Yeah, so if you've noticed, an even number by default has 0 in its LSB position. And yeah, so this logic, how it works is you and the even number with 1 second. Aryaman, shouldn't this be 0 only?
No, it should be 1. You're checking for the lowest bit, right? So
Yeah, but I'll
in,
and it, right?
yeah, TST is
Yeah,
ANDing.
cool. Yeah, cool. So you'll and it with 1, and if your result is 0, then you have an even number. So I'll this one. So the move 4. I got 4 in my R1, and my R1 is ANDed with 0 cross 1, and the result is going to be 0. But the flag is updated. So here I'll show you the XPSR. So your 0 flag is updated to 1 because the result of your TST R1 and 1 is 0. And this move any R5 R1. So the code here, how it works is I check if my R1 and R5 are not equal, and I'll check if my R6 and R1 are equal. And if they are equal, then I'll push the value to R6. And if they're not equal, I'll push the value to R5. So here I'll just run this, and you can see 4, which is an even number, in the register R6. And that's exactly what I told. I told move to R6 if equal.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
#1 and 0x1 is the same thing, right?
Yeah. Like you use, yeah, it's the same thing.
Also, guys, you should be using hexadecimal
Hex,
whenever you can, because there was a case last year where we didn't use hex in one place and we just got our marks cut everywhere.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so
should we use hex at all places?
yeah,
Yeah,
just
use hex
try
wherever
using
you
hex.
can, because so I'll tell you why that is. So the compiler or the board natively understands hex, right? Hex, and then it converts to bits. But when you put a decimal into a register, it has to perform an operation to convert it into hex and then do that. So the time complexity increases. Well, not by a lot, but still they cut marks for it. So it's better to know that in advance.
Okay.
Okay. So, and also like, yeah, like he told, always try using hex, and this code is clear, right?
Can you
Just show the condition, no, the any and the EQ condition, so that we'll understand better,
Okay.
like what
So,
flags it takes and everything.
yeah. So any and EQ, like I showed here, both deal with the 0 flag. Okay, like it's shown here. So
Okay, so if the Z flag is set to 0, which means the AND operation gives you a 0 result,
yes,
then it's basically an even number, so it moves to the register 5.
register 6, yes. So
Oh, okay, sorry, EQ is there.
so
Okay.
you can see the 0 flag up, right? It's 1. That's
Right.
because the AND gave you a 0, so your 0 flag is up. So that's how you know the number you gave in is an even number, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chitra, can you show them with an odd number also?
Yeah. Oh, my bad, sorry. So here, the value 5 went into my register R5 because my condition is if not equal, then move R1 to R5. And like you can see here, the 0 flag is not up because it's an odd number. And my AND does not give 0 anymore as the result. Is this clear, guys?
Yeah.
If it's 0, then it goes into R6, right?
If it's 0, it goes, yeah, correct. So both of these codes, again, they've been put into the lab 2 on Git. So you can access them and run them on your keel as well. So this is to check or to like feed into your memory all the negative and positive numbers. So initially in this code, I'm moving this value here to my R0, which is a negative number. And I'm moving a positive upper limit to R1. And this 2000, that's basically, I'm giving that number to access my memory window here. So as you can see, like I told you, I'll come back to the pre and post memory indexing part here, right? So my str command, this is where I'm using it. And yeah, this is what I told you guys. I'll explain in the code. So I'll just run this and show. So my R0 is taking the value and R1, R9 and R8, those values are given for the memory access locations. And the hash that and the equal to are just two different ways of entering values into your registers. And I moved 0 into R2, and then I'm comparing R0 and R2. So if I compare a negative number with 0, it's going to be negative only, right? So, and then I'm giving a BMI, which is basically, as you can see here, is if your negative flag is set. So when your negative flag, so that is a condition in case your negative flag is set. If it is set, then it will jump to this loop, which starts with a negative as I indexed it here, and then this loop will be processed. Let's say my negative flag is not set and it goes to this loop, positive number, then this command will be executed. Is this clear? Like I'll come to the pre and post indexing later, but I just want the looping to be clear to you guys. So tell me where will I reach if my negative flags up with this condition?
You go to
Line 80.
negative loop.
Yes, cool. Yeah. So and then so if my negative flag is up, I'll go into the negative loop, and then essentially what this str R0 R9 hash 4 does is it adds up 4 to your R9, and R9 is a memory access location that I've given here, which is 2000. And as you can see right now, so in the memory window here, you can access all the bits in your memory and check what values have been pushed here. So I'll just run this and show. So initially, yeah.
Have they told you in class what are the memory ranges in the microcontroller?
No, they haven't given us any memory ranges or anything.
Yeah, so it starts from like read-write memory starts from 2 followed by 7 zeros. That's just something to note, because if you try using anything else, you will get no permission to write or something.
Okay, and what's the upper bound?
Upper bound, I think it's I'm not sure. It should be 2 1 followed by 6 zeros. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I've gone into the negative loop, and here the memory that will be accessed would be this memory location would be accessed, which is 2 followed by 7 zeros plus 4, which is 2 followed by 6 zeros and a 4. So this memory location will be accessed, and yeah. And this value is pushed in here. Can you see it? My R0's value goes in here. R0 minus 1. goes in here. Can you see it? Yes.
Can you repeat it once?
Yeah, okay. So I've compared a negative number with 0, and I've told if it's negative, and if the comparison gives me a negative number, then run the negative loop, which is basically pushing my R naught into the memory location.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. And I'll run this again. It now compares R0 and R1 and loops out. And as I keep running every iteration, you can see the memory locations being updated to the bottom left, bottom right. So basically all your negative values are being pushed into the register here as of now. So like essentially, I think we had a question where sir gave us a lower bound and an upper bound and told us to push in all the negative numbers that come in between into the memory location. So in questions like that, obviously you cannot push in all those numbers into the registers, right? Because you only have good 15 registers, out of which you cannot use all of them. So you put in these digits to your memory location and you access them from here. And in fact, if I run this entire thing, then I think you'll be able to see that all of these are the number of negative numbers in between. And it starts from 2 followed by 6 zeros and ending with a 4. And it goes on until a positive number is encountered. Is this clear, guys?
Chitra, you can show them the 2 0 0 0 5 3 zeros. Yeah, that will show them the positive numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are the positive numbers which are entered using the positive loop here. So essentially using this loop, I am accessing the memory location from R8, which is basically 2000 5000, and that's what I entered here.
What does the Z do, the capital Z that you have mentioned to the left of add on line 15?
Think of it as a jump location. So
Yeah.
what have you been taught what B does in class?
No.
No.
Right. So B is a branching instruction. Okay. So you would use it as you use any opcode. You put B as the instruction, and then you put a variable name as in the place that it should branch to. It's equivalent of jump. If you know any other microcontroller, it's equivalent of jump. Yeah. So here we do B and Z. So it searches for where Z has been declared as a variable. So right after Z, you see that add R0 and 1. So it just jumps to that location and executes the code there sequentially after that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you all don't understand branching and looping yet, we can probably show you a few more examples. Hello.
No, I think we are good for now.
Right.
Okay.
One thing to note, guys. So you see how we did move R9 and we did 2 followed by 7 zeros, right? So anyone can try moving a number greater than that, but using the MOV instruction, but it won't work. So the microcontroller isn't designed to take numbers greater than 2 followed by 7 zeros using the move instruction. So you have to use LDR. That's why in the next line, if you see at line 10, we use LDR and comma equal to a number which is greater than 2 followed by 7 zeros. I mean, you can try it out on your own machines, it'll throw an error. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, assuming that you guys have understood the looping, how to loop and why flags are important and why do we use the instructions which do not give us the result directly to an register, right? The logical bitwise operations. So, can one of you all tell me why we use bitwise operations? This is not to bum you all out. I just want to make sure it was clear.
It's because it's a lot faster and more efficient than other operations.
It's like loops in any normal coding language.
Yeah, and you can also make use of loops using these conditional operations, which will essentially access your flags. So I will quickly show you guys your assignment questions and sort of give you like hints for them. So I'm assuming all of you know what ones complement is, right? You must have done it in DST.
Yeah.
So you write a code to do ones complement of a number. Basically, you have to use a XOR gate, and you just have to use the XOR operation to get that ones complement. But with what number, you guys find out. I'm not going to tell you that. And the next one is write a program to calculate the number of times a particular letter occurs in a given string. So this question, we got it for our NSEM lab. And we back then had never worked with strings. So we were all basically, we had a very hard time, let's say, in that 3-hour lab. So essentially how this works is if you input a string value, it takes like basically it converts the ASCII value of that letter into hex. So let's say if you enter A and A's ASCII value is 97, in hex it is 61. So that A is going to be stored as 61 in your register. And then you can use, so basically since you just have to compare if a letter is repeating in a string, you just compare both of their hex values, iterate through it, and the number of times your zero flag shows up, right? So like if the letter you're searching for is in the given word, then both of their hex values are going to be equal. And if you compare them, your zero flag is going to be raised. So you can put a count with your zero flag and iterate through to find out the number of times the letter is repeating in the string. And the third one is pretty simple. I just included this, I think, to more sort of make you guys understand that this is all not only going to be on just simulation on Keel. Like practically, this is how people use it. Like, so if 5 of your sensors give you an input and you have certain conditions, then run the conveyor belt. Or let's say you create something to pick up the trash, or a line follower bot. So if the line follower senses a line, so line follower is essentially just following a line and a path that we give it, right? So if the bot senses the red line in front of it and the sensor is activated, and that's when its wheels start rotating. And that's how the line follower moves forward. So in this question, you basically have two systems. The first one has one sensor interface to RO, and the next one has 3 sensors. And if all of my sensors are high, then the wheels of the vehicle are supposed to move. So can one of you all think of a logic to make this work? I just need all of my 4 sensors to give me a high input, and that's when the vehicle moves. That's it. Very simple.
You AND it with all ones.
Yeah, correct. That's it. So it's extremely simple, but this is how you practically use it when you're coding out a line follower from scratch. So just to give you guys sort of that idea, I included this question. And actually, there's one more question I wanted to include, but let's, I mean, the people whoever are interested could take it as an optional question. So, how are you guys done with sorting in DSA? Quick sort and bubble sort, and all of that. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
no, they haven't taught us bubble sort or anything.
Acha, fine. So those of you, sorry. And if there are people who know how it works, then you could also implement bubble sort, quick sort, and all the sorts using the logical bitwise operations that we saw today. So if any of you all are interested, you could read upon it or text one of us. We'll help you out. And also, guys, I think so. That obviously that's it. Do you guys have any doubts regarding anything that was took up today?
Out.
Yeah.
Actually, there was one point that one senior said about error, that you will get an error if you exceed the value. What is that? Can you repeat that point once again?
As in exceed what value? Exceed the 32-bit value or exceed the memory location? Okay.
I
LDR.
think you're asking about the 2 followed by 7 zeros, right? Hello.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a limitation of the opcode. Have you all been taught the layout of the instruction set, as in each opcode gets mapped to a hexadecimal value, and then have you all been taught all that yet?
No,
We've
no,
been told that, but like not
That
really
is
given
like the
a
first
list.
thing
not
they taught us.
completely.
Yeah,
Like,
they
so
mentioned that they are related, but they didn't like really show which one is related to what.
Yeah.
right. Okay, so I think I can get some material on that. I'll send it through one of the people at ISA, and you all can see it then. Actually, Sai, can I call you Sai? Okay, yeah, fine. Just try using a value greater than 2 followed by 7 zeros using move. It shouldn't work, and you should use LDR for numbers greater than that.
Okay, got it.
It's a limitation of the language. Yeah.
Yeah. So any other doubts related to what was taken up today or of last class?
No, thanks a lot.
Oh, okay. One last thing, guys. Try helping out each other with the topics, okay? If there's anyone who's got it better than the others, like I can tell 2, 3 of you all have a sort of grip on the topic right now and have understood. Try helping out each other because that's how you learn. And if anyone has an issue with pushing codes or let's say submitting an assignment because they couldn't complete, then help out your classmates, and it's going to be a great experience if you just help each other out to learn. That's it. So yeah, thank you for attending the class.
Yeah, thank you for taking it.
Yeah.